22. I didn't realize that was the date today until I started typing in the title. But 2222. It's only going to happen once. Pretty cool. Well, I guess once until the next 1,000 years or whatever. I'm not a mathematician, but we're going to talk a little bit about Mississippi State tonight, and whatever else you guys want to talk about. We'll talk about anything. I'm here for whatever you guys want to discuss. But whatever you guys want to talk about, put it in that chat over there on the right, and I'll be glad to talk about whatever. Music, wrestling, Mississippi State. There's nothing scientific, but whatever you guys want to talk about. But signing day today for college football, and junior colleges were the ones that really built their classes today. But still some guys coming out of the portal, some guys coming out of high school that were coming off the board in college football today. Mississippi State didn't really have anybody. They had two wide receivers that had already signed in the early signing period that wanted to take part in signing day with their teammates, Caden Pope and Xavier Thomas. Both of those guys signed with Mississippi State officially on Wednesday, and Mississippi State now has everybody that's been expected in the class here and involved now for the Bulldogs. So it's a solid class so far, but you look at the landscape of the SEC, and everybody's got a solid class. I mean, this is the fishbowl, as I like to say, that Mississippi State lives in. Texas A&M signed the best class in the history of college football. That was just about wrapped up. It should be just about wrapped up for them on signing day on Wednesday. 7 5-stars, 18 4-stars out of the 28 commitments that they have. I mean, they now have absolutely no excuse but to go compete and possibly win a national title. And Jimbo Fisher's been challenged on this class, and he was not happy about some of the comments that have been coming out. Lane Kiffin kind of stirred the pot up a little bit on Tuesday, I believe, and Jimbo Fisher fired back at him. So, a lot of back and forth now going between these coaches and fans and media and everybody talking about NIL and whether or not a team is cheating to get these players. And hold on just a second. I bought this ring light. I bought this thing for a reason. There we go. Doesn't make me look much better, but sometimes it helps. But there's a lot of contention out there between these coaches of other schools about these recruiting classes, and to me, it's just a little bit disingenuous by these coaches to act like there's nothing going on. And a lot of this stuff is legal now with NIL and all that, so I don't even know why people are upset about it, but they are. And Jimbo Fisher came out on Wednesday and kind of voiced his displeasure with Lane Kiffin. Didn't name him by name, but that's who he's talking about. Lane Kiffin's comments about how they spent $25 million on a signing class or whatever. So it's getting wild right now, and there's a lot going on in the SEC. I mean, you look at these signing classes. I mean, LSU is in the middle of a coaching change. Brian Kelly comes in. They're having to kind of build their class late. I mean, that group is fourth in the SEC and sixth nationally. I mean, it wasn't really a breakout class for LSU, and they're sixth in the country in recruiting. And then the top three schools right now in the top 25 in recruiting are all SEC schools. And Mississippi State had a solid class this year, and I don't see a big problem with this signing class for the Bulldogs. But they're 12th in the SEC right now. I mean, I thought this was a really good class by Mike Leach, and you're looking at it, and Mississippi State is 12th in the SEC with 3 4-stars in their class. I mean, that's just this is the kind of life that you live when you're in the SEC. Texas A&M, Alabama, and Georgia are your top 3 schools nationally in recruiting. Then you have LSU 6th, and that's 4 teams in the SEC in the top 10 this year. Ole Miss right now with the transfer portal really helping their class out with 30 commitments. They're 14th in the country. Missouri has really surprised some people this year, 16th nationally for Missouri and Eli Drinkwitz. So they're having a really good recruiting class. Kentucky's kind of the same way. They're 19th. Arkansas 20th. Auburn 21st. Then you come down to Tennessee, rounding out the top 25 at 25th. State and South Carolina are hovering around the top 25. South Carolina 27th. State's dropped a good bit since all this transfer portal has happened, and they're 29th now. So you have the majority of the SEC schools inside the top 30. That's the teams that you're playing year in and year out, and it's crazy the amount of talent that's happening every single year. Jesse, great to not have any drama on signing day. I'm kind of opposed to some other people's thoughts. That a lot of people I've seen talking about missing the February action, the February excitement that used to be. Then there was no early signing day unless you were a junior college player. But the early signing period has taken away most of the drama on signing day in February. I'm all for it. I don't really want 2 signing days where you're stressing out. And for us, it helps us out to just focus on that first signing day. I do a lot of high school sports. So that first signing day is kind of me focusing most of my efforts on Mississippi State's class. Today I was able to kind of get to some of these schools, and I'll go again on Thursday to another school locally and do the high school signing day, because this is the big day for junior colleges. A lot of these local athletes are going to junior college. It's nice to kind of reserve this day just for high school so I can focus on one thing and not have to be loaded down with 2 different things like we used to. So I'm with you, Jesse. I'm all for it. I'm all for this early signing period, but it has created some chaos in college football early on in the process. In December, you're having coaches that are having to leave early, that are having to take over programs, and that's definitely been a detriment for colleges, having to hurry up and hire somebody right away. And you're seeing a lot of coaches that aren't taking part in bowl games and things like that because they got to go to their other school and prepare to sign a signing class in December. So it's definitely made things hectic for these college coaches and these college administrators. Cameron, you saw a message on the boards about logos. Are we refreshing them? I haven't heard of anything at this time, and that's been a hot topic for a lot of fans over the last few months. A lot of fans want to go back to some old logos that Mississippi State's had in the past, or maybe get a new, fresher logo. I haven't heard of anything as of right now, but I know that's been a hot topic over the last few months, especially for people that want the M over S as a logo, or the interlocking MSU from the 90s. A lot of people want that just for nostalgic purposes, but I've seen a lot of people that are wanting to do away with the banner logo that Mississippi State has. Everything I've heard is that Mississippi State is happy with that logo, and they're trying to brand around that logo. So I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon, but who knows? I mean, that stuff comes and goes. Mr. Harmon, are the winter workouts happening? Yeah, I think all that's going on right now. We've heard some good reports from some of the early signees, some of the people that are already enrolled, some of the transfers and junior college transfers, a few of the high school guys. I've heard some really good things about Percy Lewis in the weight room so far, and DeCarlos Nicholson as well. You're always going to hear good things about that stuff. There's not many people that come out and tell you, hey, these guys don't look very good in the weight room. There's always going to be some positive developments happening in winter workouts. I think right now, so far, everything looks good for Mississippi State. They've been able to get those transfers in there and working in the weight room, and that's huge. I mean, as many guys as you can get enrolled early, get in the workout program, get their bodies ready, and also get in the playbook and things like that, the better. I mean, I can't, especially in the SEC, I really cannot say enough about getting in school early. For high school guys, that's becoming more common practice. Graduating high school early and getting in school, I can't say enough about that. I think that's a great idea for the guys that are able to do that. You can get a head start on a lot of the peers that you have in your classification. Cameron, any surprising info coming from Baseball Media Day? Nothing really surprising. The other day, we had a chance to talk to Chris Lamonis and several players. It was a great setup, and I always enjoy that, getting a chance to get kind of an early glimpse of the team and gauging their thoughts on kind of where things are. One of the surprises, I don't know if it's a surprise or not, but a lot of the players, pretty much led by Brad Cumbest, talked about how they didn't feel like they played their best baseball last year. And, Cameron James said he agreed to a point that they did play their best baseball at the end of the year, but for most of the season, that team was not playing at its best. They can be much better than they were for most of the regular season. I mean, a lot of people forget second to last series last year, they lost to Missouri 2 out of 3. They went to the SEC tournament and got blown out in 2 ball games and run ruled. So this was a team that most of the season was not playing like they were in the College World Series. College World Series, they didn't have any errors defensively. They were not that good defensively all season long. And they come out in the College World Series and they were just a really cohesive unit. And, Cameron James and some of those guys are really excited about the infield that they have this year, bringing back a couple of pieces, Lane Forsythe, Luke Hancock over at first base. You got Cameron James at third base, and they're adding a veteran presence in R.J. Yeager from Mercer, who, is not just a freshman that you're throwing into the mix there. That's a guy that's played a lot of baseball. So you got to feel just as good about him as you did of Scotty DeBrule last year. So I'm really intrigued to see what this team becomes this year. There's so many pieces there, but there's so many that puzzle has not been put together yet for Mississippi State. All the pieces are laid out on the table, and now you have to put it all together. And there hasn't been a guy that I've seen in Mississippi State ever that has been able to hit at a higher percentage of putting those puzzle pieces together than Chris Lamonis. You talk about moving Justin Foscue over to second base from third base and shoring up those concerns there in 2019. Moving Cam James to third base and finding your shortstop in Lane Forsythe last year was so big. Luke Hancock coming in at first base after the struggles that they had at the plate from Josh Hatcher last year. It just seems like everything that Chris Lamonis touches turns to gold with Mississippi State in terms of the moves that he makes. So there's not a better person that I think can handle those puzzle pieces than Chris Lamonis. He might be as good at those puzzles as my grandmother. And I'm not calling Chris Lamonis an old man or anything, but I'm just saying my grandmother's really good at puzzles. Jesse, do you think the transfer portal hurts high school athletes' opportunities? Absolutely. I think it's hurting junior colleges probably the most, because junior colleges were those kids that, how you're using the portal now, that's how you use junior colleges. Because the transfer portal was, you could only get that immediate playing time with graduates. And that might be 1 or 2 guys a year. You did not hit the transfer portal incredibly hard because of that reason. But now you've opened it up to a one-time immediate transfer eligibility, and that's made things really difficult for these junior college guys. I don't know the repercussions that's going to come from this, because we're just now in year 2 of this transfer portal being wide open. And I feel like we're just getting started in this thing being a complete chaos. I don't know how it's going to be fixed, but right now there's several things in college football that probably need to be tweaked. Transfer portal, I don't know if that's going to be tweaked anytime soon, because they just turned to this one-time transfer deal. But, the NIL's got to be fixed. So I feel like you got to do something with this transfer portal because it's so wild. But at the same time, you got to think at some point it's going to kind of reset itself too. There's going to be guys that right now are transferring that probably wouldn't transfer 2 or 3 years down the road, because you're going to be a little more cautious. You're going to have a few more guys that have been able to take trips and visits and know a little more about coaching staff than the class that just came through. Because you got to remember, this class that just came through, these freshmen that are becoming sophomores this year, they weren't able to take visits. They weren't able to see coaches in person. They did all this recruiting on Zoom. and on cell phones. So you're going to see this class that's the Teddy Knox class. Teddy Knox is in the transfer portal now for Mississippi State. That class, I think, is going to have the most transfers of any class in the history of college football, because there's so many players out there that did not get an opportunity to go visit these schools, and they're having kind of a revelation this year. They haven't been able to build a good relationship with these coaches like some of the other classes were. So I think that that's going to be a monster exodus from that group. And I think, back to your original question, yes, I do think it's going to hurt high school athletes, and I do think more than anything it's going to really hurt those junior college kids. Because why would you go after a junior college kid? Say that you're going after a cornerback, and you need immediate help with a cornerback. Why would you go after a cornerback that's played junior college football at East Mississippi when you can go get a kid that's coming from Alabama that's played 3 years with Nick Saban? So I mean that's just that's kind of where we are right now, and I hate it for some of these junior college kids. It's always been preached to a lot of these kids coming out of high school. You might not have these options coming out of high school, but if you go to junior college for 2 years, you develop. Everybody's watching junior college. Somebody will be able to see you and kind of see how you're developing. I think that's going to be diminished tremendously through this transfer portal. Izzy, do you see in-season transfers becoming more common if something doesn't change? Yeah, they will. Because guys are going to be jumping in the portal to get ahead of the game. I mean, look at where things are right now. You have thousands of players in the transfer portal, and there's not enough spots out there. The quicker you get in the portal and you have eyes on you, the more eyes that you have on you, the quicker you can find a spot. So, I mean, now you're seeing guys jump in the portal that they might not have a spot when 2 or 3 months ago, a team might be looking for somebody and that there's a person available and they would jump on them. So I think you're going to see more people quitting in the middle of the season to get in the portal to go ahead and get ready. State had several of those guys this year too. Rodney Gross did that. London Kraft did that. That might have been it, but State had a couple do that. And I don't really blame them, but they need to get ahead of the game. Some of these guys need to get ahead of the game, but it's just crazy what's going on in college football right now. I don't really know. I don't really know how to fix all of it, but something's got to be done. Cameron, you think Kiffin could be in the conversation for Michigan head coach if Harbaugh goes to the NFL? I don't know. I don't know if there's any kind of connection there with Lane Kiffin. I think he might be at Ole Miss for a little bit. He had several options there were several options that he could have possibly gone to, and I don't think anything really materialized. When do midnight maneuvers start, Fred? I'm not sure. That should be going on close to spring practice, maybe this month. I'm not sure what the schedule is for that. They talked to Mike Leach today. I was busy doing some high school stuff today, so I didn't get to talk to Mike Leach. But they had him today talk about the signing class and his new staff and all that. And he mentioned the start of spring practice coming up. I don't know if he mentioned anything about midnight maneuvers. So I'm not sure when that happens. I apologize. I forgot all about when that went down. I just remember it being really cold whenever it happened last year. So I imagine it's going to be sometime in February, maybe early March. And by the way, we've talked about it a little bit. I'm sure everybody's seen it at this point, but some major staff changes for Mike Leach this week, moving around a lot of people on staff. He moved in his quality control coach, I believe quarterbacks quality control coach, Drew Hollingshead. He moves in from the quality control position to inside receivers, a spot that was held by Dave Nickel. And a lot of people were upset about that. A lot of people wanted Chad Bumpus for that position, and understandably so. But the counterpoint to that is Mike Leach has had a lot of success with that position, that quality control position, those guys being elevated. So, I mean, I'm not saying trust the coaches or anything, but Mike Leach in the past has elevated those guys to tremendous success. Lincoln Riley was one of those guys, and now he's at USC. So you just never know with that. But I understand, too, the people that wanted Chad Bumpus for that position. I feel like that would have been a really good job for Chad Bumpus, but it just didn't work out this time around. So Hollingshead it kind of stirred up everything for Mississippi State, which I think Leach was wanting to make a few changes in there. He moved Eric Millay, who was the running backs coach. Millay moves to special teams, and that job was a job that a lot of people were, I guess, concerned about. Matt Brock had that position last year and has had it for the last few years under Leach. And Brock moves from that spot to linebackers coach. You know, as you remember, he was coaching one of the linebacker positions with Zach Arnett. So Brock goes there as Millay moves to special teams full time. You now have just a person focused just on special teams. Tony Hughes stays in the secondary with Darcel McBath. They moved Jason Washington from safeties to running backs. I thought that was really interesting. So he moves there, and I believe that Zach Arnett takes over the safeties. So it was musical chairs. I mean, just about everybody moved around, and then you had the new titles for Mason Miller and Steve Spurrier Jr. Steve Spurrier gets the passing game coordinator title, I believe, and run game coordinator title for Mason Miller. So we'll see what happens with all that, but that was wild. I wasn't expecting all those moves. Fred saw the spring game is the 16th of April and last day of spring is 26th of April. Yeah, that is interesting. You know, used to the spring game was like the end of spring. You would play that maroon white spring game at the stadium, and that was like it. That was the last that you saw. That was the last that the players did. But it seems like Mike Leach likes that extra week after the spring game to work on some more stuff, and he'll get 10 more days of practice after the spring game. So that's interesting. Also interesting, I really felt like Super Bulldog weekend might be LSU weekend, but it's the Easter weekend series, I believe, with Auburn, which was interesting. I'm not sure what went into that thought process, but that's what Mississippi State has going on for Super Bulldog weekend. Oh, let's see. Who do you think will start in the outfield for baseball? Fred. Probably Brad Cumbest. Jess Davis right now I think could probably be your center fielder. And left fielder, well, maybe Brad would be left field, but probably Kellum Clark and right, if I had to guess. Jay heard Cam James possibly playing in the outfield. Any thoughts he couldn't make the transition, and which outfielder do you think is the most at risk? I've heard that a lot about Cam James, but right now I think everything is pointing to him staying at third base. I think that's an intriguing thing. I don't know. I feel like he could play the outfield, but I just don't know if that's going to happen. But if he does, and I think if he moves to the outfield, that probably tells you that Slade Alford has been too good to keep off of the field. So I don't know if I foresee that happening, but that would be a way to get some of your best, most talented hitters in the lineup, possibly. So I mean that is an intriguing thing, and we'll see if that materializes. Hopefully, Jess Davis or Braylon Skinner are able to lock down one of those that starting spot in center field, and they're hitting the ball really well. And Lamonis said, I believe Lamonis said, whoever is hitting the best is the one that's going to be in the lineup, because both of those guys are probably going to be excellent defenders. You know, Jess Davis was a Gold Glove winner last year at UAB. We know Braylon Skinner's got tremendous speed out there in center field. So I think either one of those guys would be able to play really good defense, but the one that's hitting the ball, the one that's getting on base, that's going to be the one that plays. What up, Nathan? Cameron saw Mule pull up at second in Saturday scrimmage. Any news off of that? Yeah, he had a hamstring, I believe, and we talked to him yesterday. He was in good spirits. He was going through all the warm ups and all that stuff. So I don't foresee anything being wrong with him long term. I haven't heard of any kind of serious injuries for anybody. I think Logan Tanner's kind of taking it easy right now, and I believe that Hunter Hines had an injury the other day. So that's a guy that we'll be watching. The freshman first baseman. You'd like to have him getting some reps this year at first base and in the lineup, but I'm not sure the severity of his injury. Shane McMahon's out of WWE. I saw that, man. His own father fired him. I can't believe that. Vince is ruthless. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on in college football. Not a whole lot going on for Mississippi State right now. We're kind of watching the Bulldogs transfer portal options coming in. They still have a few spots remaining to go pull out some transfer portal guys, and we'll keep you updated. Paul Jones, Steve Robertson, those guys are on top of things over there on our site on 247 Sports, and they will keep you updated on all that. You'll know before it even happens a lot of times. So if you guys want to check that out, definitely do. Oh, and we're having a 60% off. Little shameless plug here. 60% off for an annual subscription. That's going on for the next few hours. If you want to get on that, you need to do that now because at 11 o'clock that will be gone. So 60% off. There's still a lot left in this class. Mississippi State still has 3 or 4 more positions that they're trying to get in the transfer portal and maybe somewhere else. So we still got recruiting to talk about, folks. Recruiting really never stops. So you need to go check that out over on 247. Fred, thoughts on Brian Kelly's grinding on the LSU players? Obviously, it didn't work because the guy that he was dancing with ended up going to Alabama. So I guess the guy's more of a Cupid Shuffle fan with Nick Saban. Nick Saban Nick Saban is your typical older guy. I mean, he's not going to be in. He's not going to have the in dance moves, but he's so much cooler than Brian Kelly. And Brian Kelly looks like an absolute dork dancing with kids on that little stage, and it was way too close. The kid ended up going to Alabama, so obviously, a lot of people were saying the other day, good any publicity is good publicity. Apparently not, because that kid didn't even come to LSU. So, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that. I disagree with the with any publicity is good publicity when it comes to that, because the fake Southern accent, the dancing, is a little too much. I mean, I could go to LSU and probably recruit a top 10 class. And Brian Kelly does not have to do all of that extra stuff. All he has to do is sell LSU to Louisiana kids and other kids, and he's good to go. I mean, it's just that I don't understand it. Mason, can we get a weekly wrestling minute on Thunder and Lightning? Izzy comes in and pours water on top of that question and says he wants less wrestling. I think I might do more wrestling just for that, Izzy. Just because you want less, I'm going to do more. How about that? I'm just saying. It's our show. We'll see what happens. I don't think we talk wrestling that much. We answer questions on the rumblings, wrestling related, but it's not that big of a deal. LSU media was raving over all the views. I mean, it did get a ton of hits. It did get a ton of hits. We'll see what transpires over the next few years, but I'm just not digging it. I'm not digging Brian Kelly at all. Brian Kelly and LSU is such a weird fit. But the last guy they got from Notre Dame was pretty good in baseball, and Paul Maneri. So I think just about anybody though can recruit to LSU. That's a pretty easy spot to recruit to when you're the only big time college in the state of Louisiana and a state that's one of the most talented in the country. So a little basketball too while we're talking to you guys about Mississippi State. The basketball team got a big win on Tuesday night against South Carolina. much needed win, a must win for Mississippi State and Ben Howland if they want to stay alive in the NCAA tournament hopes. So that was one game that they really needed to get down. And we talk about it all the time. Mississippi State needs to win these games that are winnable ball games. These games that you're expected to win. They have to win those games. They have to steal a couple in the rest of the schedule. I think 11 SEC wins, as long as they're the right ones, as long as you're not losing to Missouri twice or something. I think 11 SEC wins will get Mississippi State in the tournament. And they have 5 right now. So you've got to beat Missouri. I think you've got to beat Missouri twice. I think you need to go. I really think you need to beat LSU. LSU's not playing very well right now. That would be a huge win because they are currently, a top 25 net team. Arkansas is a team that Mississippi State has played really well under Ben Howland. That's always a tough game in Fayetteville, but State has had success there. I think that's a game they need to steal because some of these other games are going to be incredibly difficult, and they have a tough slate coming up here soon. You got to go to Alabama, you got to go to Arkansas, you got Tennessee coming to town. You still got Auburn waiting on the schedule. It's going to be tough. It's going to be really tough for Mississippi State. They've kind of put themselves in this position, losing at Florida, losing to Minnesota, losing to Colorado State. Winnable games there for the taking that are now coming back to haunt them. And the Florida game doesn't hurt them from a loss perspective. It just hurts them that they weren't able to get that win. That would have been a good win for them. That's a bubble team at Florida. Like I said, it's not a killer on their resume that they lost. It's taking away an opportunity to jump up a few more spots in the net and to have another good piece of your resume because that would have been a quad 1 win. So that's tough to lose that, but State still has those chances out there to go grab some wins and get in the NCAA tournament. It's a very, very important few weeks for the Bulldogs. Mason, who has a better chance to make the tournament, the men's or the women's? That's what I was going to get into next. Whoa, almost live television, folks. Live television. That's what I was about to get into. Is the women's team really impressive week last week? They were the team of the week by ESPN with 2 wins over Missouri and Texas A&M. But then you had the tough news that Danae Carter went down with a torn ACL. I thought that was just devastating for Mississippi State to lose a player like that. Danae has been such a huge piece for Mississippi State this year, and not just from a scoring perspective, because she hasn't been scoring very many points the last few games in an SEC play. That's not where she makes her impact. She's such an energizer bunny out there. She gets the team really energized. They play hard. And I'm not saying that they won't play hard without her, but I feel like she's a catalyst to all that. She plays really hard, and she's the team's best rebounder. She's been difficult for several post players that are bigger than her to score against because she's got those long arms and she's quick. I just feel like that's going to be tough to replace. But this is an opportunity for Charlotte Cole and Raven Farley. And if those players can step up, then State's got a great chance to get into the tournament. They have to beat Auburn to really kind of stay in that conversation. Right now, they're the last 4 out, which is good. I mean, they still have several opportunities ahead here. You win some ball games, and you're right there in the mix. So they're steadily moving back up now after 2 big wins, and they've gone from next 4 out to last 4 out in the last few days. So that's been a good development. You win this week, I think there's a possibility you could move into the better side of the bubble, but we'll see. I mean, it's just going to be a tough road for them, just like it is the men. But who has a better chance? I would think that the women have a better chance to get in because the SEC in the men's side of things, I feel is much tougher. I think I could very easily see Mississippi State going to Missouri and losing that ball game. But I think State has a better chance of beating Auburn in women's basketball on the road. And those are 2 teams that are kind of comparable. Missouri's had more success than Auburn, but 2 teams that are towards the bottom half of the league. And I like State's women's chances better of winning that ball game. So I would say that the women have a better shot because I just don't think that bubble either is incredibly impressive for them. Bob, what's your impression of Novak and staff, and where John Cohen stands on him at this point? I think that he's very impressive. I've been really impressed with what he's been able to do since he's taken over as Mississippi State's interim coach. I didn't have high expectations, and not because I didn't think he was a good coach. I thought it was going to be very difficult for someone who just got here to get a team together to play well this year and to implement his system and things like that. I thought that was going to be very difficult for him, and he's just got them to play hard. They've bought in. The crew that's remaining has really bought into what this staff has put in place, and I think that's huge. I think that's very telling of what kind of coach Doug Novak is. Quite frankly, I'm kind of shocked that he hasn't had any other opportunities. And I don't know if that's, his doing, if he's not really tried to get those opportunities or not been interested, or if he's just been flying under the radar. But he's a seriously impressive coach, and I love how blunt and honest he is to us. I told him that the other day. We talked to him yesterday by the way, first time we've talked to anybody in the women's program on the record in person since we talked to Vic Schaefer after the SEC championship game in 2020. That's how long it's been since we've talked to someone in person. And he was excited about it. I was a little surprised. But, yeah, that's one thing I mentioned to him afterwards. I really appreciate the honesty that he uses. And he told us, one thing he'll never do is lie. There's a lot of things that he can't say on the record, but he will never lie. And he's a really impressive guy. If it was up to me, and it's not, this is just my 2 cents, if I didn't have someone that I felt was a big upgrade, someone that has been in women's college basketball for a while, that's been successful with their own program, if I didn't feel like I had that in place, Doug Novak would be my guy. And maybe John Cohen does. The latest intel that we had a week or two ago was that it was going to be someone different than Doug Novak. But if he continues to win, if he gets this team in the NCAA tournament, I don't know how he can't be considered for this job, and a serious consideration, not just a courtesy interview. He should be one of your top candidates. And I feel like it's a lot different. And Cameron mentioned this earlier in his question, talking about Gary Henderson. I feel like it's a lot different than that, because the baseball program was a program that you could draw, big-time Power 5 coaches and coaches that have been in place at Power 5 schools. It had a lot of interest in it. I don't know if we're going to see nearly that same interest from Mississippi State in women's basketball. And with that being the case, if Doug Novak's able to get this team to an NCAA tournament somehow and have, a 500 record in SEC play, he's done miracles. Bob says he blames the game officials for Carter's injury. Yeah, I don't know if it's their fault. I think she was moving forward enough that she still probably would have been injured. But it did absolutely look like a foul. They called a travel on her. She got bumped, and I'm not blaming the player for her injury, but she had to kind of stop her momentum there, and when she stepped, her knee locked up, and she tore her ACL right there, and it's just really unfortunate that it happened that way. Mason, am I the only one that has more trust in Novak over Howland? I can't blame you. It's been so up and down with Mississippi State men's basketball over the years. I don't trust that team to win a big game down the stretch. I just don't. We've seen enough over the last few years to know that's probably not going to happen. And I think we'll see on Doug Novak. They haven't won against a big time women's basketball program yet. They've had several top 25 games. Haven't done that yet. They'll have some more opportunities coming up. Bart Gregory in the house with a Winston County question. Burger from Carnell's or Lake Teocata? That's a tough question. Carnell's is one of the best kept secrets in North Mississippi. and in central Mississippi too. I mean, that place is a hidden gem in Louisville behind Eubanks Record Service if you're ever interested. Their wings are excellent. We got wings for our fantasy draft party that we had this year. We got about 100 wings. They're excellent. Lake Teocata though is the goat for Sunday buffets. The burger at Lake Teocata is good, but the Sunday buffet and the seafood buffet, I think on Friday nights, it doesn't miss. It's excellent. Fred, where does Rakia end up? I don't know. I heard the other day that Texas might be interested, but I don't know if Vic Schaefer's going to take a swing or not. That just remains to be seen on where she goes. I don't know where she ends up. I'm sure she's going to have her list of schools available there. Does everyone on the women's team return next year? No. It's so hard to predict next year's team for women's basketball. I feel safe in saying Jessica Carter's going to be back. I really believe that you'll probably have Danae Carter back, but who knows? I mean, you just don't know with some of these players. You can have a new coach and all that. Jessica Carter feels like the only person that I feel really confident is going to return. Maya Taylor, she's going to have an option to return, but I don't know if she wants to come back or not. She might want to go elsewhere for her final season. I don't know. I mean, it would be nice to have that veteran presence back to kind of bridge the gap between all the transfers you're probably going to bring in. I feel like Drakayla Jordan will probably be back because I don't know if she wants to transfer next year and sit out, because after the first time you got to sit out. So she might be back, and then we'll see on the Hayes sisters. I don't expect Anastasia to come back. I don't think she's going to use her COVID year. She's been in college for a while. She's already got her degree. She's working on her master's now, so I don't know if we'll see her back or not. But I mean, she would obviously be a huge piece returning. Do you have a coaching hot board? Not yet. I'm trying to kind of vet some people, reach out and see who are the candidates that are legit candidates for Mississippi State. I don't want to just throw names around. I want to get a good list of people that I feel like Mississippi State will actually consider and that will consider Mississippi State too. So I'm working on that right now. And I'll try to have something up for sure by around the end of the season. Little Perfect talking about Tamika Reed. I really like Tamika Reed. She's done a great job at JSU. I've been really impressed with what she's done there. I've kept up with them a good bit because former Starkville High player Jaria Covington's there, and also Amisha Williams that played at Mississippi State. So I like to keep up with JSU a good bit, and I knew that their team was going to be pretty good this year. And I didn't think they would lose again after that tournament that Mississippi State had, and so far they haven't. They're undefeated in the SWAC right now, and they're looking like they're going to win another SWAC title. She's done a great job there. She's a great coach. Fred, Matthew Mitchell from Louisville or Johnny Taylor as women's head coach? Yeah, I don't think that Matthew Mitchell was one of the guys that I thought would be home run hire for Mississippi State. He's from Mississippi, right down the road, Mississippi State graduate. It just made sense. But everything I hear about him is he's not interested in returning to coaching right now. He's pretty darn good financially, and I think he's just happy living his life right now with his family. So I don't expect him to get back into coaching, but I'm sure Cohen's already reached out to him. That would be a no-brainer call to make, just to see if he's interested, gauge his interest. Because that's one of the hires that you make that you could get back on track pretty quick. You might not be competing for a national championship next year, but you feel pretty safe with Matthew Mitchell that if he came in right away, you would be in pretty good shape. And then Joni Taylor, I don't know why she would leave Georgia for Mississippi State. That's a pretty darn good job. And I know she's from the state of Mississippi. It would be an opportunity to get closer to her family, who I think still live here. I'm not certain, but As far as the job is concerned, Georgia's a pretty darn good job. They have a really good area to pull from too, and I'm sure she's getting paid solid money as well. But that's another one that you at least reach out to and kind of see, what she thinks. Steve, is Matt Coward at Heritage a legit Power Five? Yes, he is. He will be a Power Five quarterback somewhere next year. I think Mississippi State's going to ramp up their efforts on him, especially if they miss on one of their top targets, Braden Dorman. I think Matt Coward might be the guy that's coming up behind him. Really good player, really good player. I see a lot of Luke Altmaier from Starkville in him. Great athlete, plays basketball at Heritage. At least he did last year. I hadn't seen them play this year. I'm pretty sure he still plays for him. But really good athlete, really good arm, has a good pedigree as well. I definitely think he's going to be a Power 5 guy and should be an SEC guy if things work out with Mississippi State. And I think, when he goes through the spring this year and spring evaluation from coaches, he has a good summer, he could get a lot more offers. But I definitely think that he's going to play Power 5 football somewhere next year, and it wouldn't shock me to get him, to see him in the SEC. Little Perfect mentions Jeff Walls. He's not coming here. I know that was mentioned a lot last year, but that was never really a realistic option. I didn't think they were ever going to get him. I think that was just a play on some more money from his university. And I don't know if State's going to spend that kind of money on this hire. They would probably have to pay him $3 million to come to Mississippi State, and I don't see that happening. This program is not making any money. That's the problem with women's basketball. You're losing money when you're spending that much on a staff. Sam Purcell, that's a good one. I do like Sam Purcell. I don't know if he's interested or not, but that is a good one. I feel like Purcell has been at Louisville forever. I was going to look it up real quick. Ninth year at Louisville. He's been there for a while. Yeah, that's a good coach. I really like him. Was at Georgia Tech, been at Tulsa. That's a guy you can reach out to. Any time that you see a great program, a consistent program like Louisville, Connecticut, South Carolina, there's always a good chance you're going to have a star in the making on the staff somewhere. The coach is the head coach is not controlling the whole thing. There's somebody or two or three people on that staff that are making things roll one way or the other. Fred, is Jim Harbaugh coming back? Is that a thing? If it is, that's going to be really awkward for Michigan. Like, you know that he's interviewed, he's tried to get out of there, and now he's coming back. That's going to be tough. That's going to be really, really, really awkward. Jay, packing for opening weekend for the Diamond Dogs. Do I bring long sleeve t-shirt, windbreaker, sweatshirt, winter coat, or full-blown deer hunting one-piece thermal? Yes, all of it. It's going to be cold, I already know. It's felt great the last couple of days here. Today was a little rainy, but yesterday it was 65 degrees, sunny. It felt perfect. That's not going to be the case for opening weekend. It never is. It's going to be brisk. It's going to be cold, windy, probably drizzling rain. It's not going to be fun. So pack it all and see what happens. Fred, is this Howland's last year? If he doesn't make the tournament, I got to think it is. I don't foresee Mississippi State continuing to go through the same thing every year. He really needs to win this year and get in the NCAA tournament. And there's still some options there. There's still a chance. So we'll just we have to just wait it out. Right now, it's not optimistic, but there are opportunities there for Mississippi State. All it's going to take is one big win, I think, and State is going to be right back in the hunt. You go to Arkansas and win that ball game, you're going to be right back in the NCAA tournament probably. So that's what's waiting for them. They have these opportunities. They have to go take them. Lil Perfect, Gillette Law, Lisa Boyer, both very good coaches. I don't know if John goes back in that direction. He went and got a former South Carolina assistant last time too, and that didn't really work out. I think that he's probably going to go after a head coach somewhere. Not a big time school, but I think my bet is on a Group of 5 mid major type head coach, somebody that's in the mid majors right now, and there's some good ones out there. Kelly Harper, Tennessee, she was a mid major. So there's plenty of good coaches out there coaching in those conferences and for those teams that are putting together great seasons and great careers that I think could work here. But he's got to nail this one. They got to get a really good hire on this one. What happened to Malika Willis? She left the program. I'm told that there was just a kind of difference in a few things between Malika and Coach Novak. So she's no longer on the staff. But the coaches that he has on staff right now, I really like this crew. Eddie Benton, Bob Thornton, Ashley Morris. They've done a great job, I think. Steve, how about Jimbo's rant? I talked briefly about that earlier. Wow, I mean, it's like I said earlier. I mean, it's just some of this stuff that they're arguing about, these coaches, some of the stuff that they're firing back and forth about, this stuff's legal. So there's nothing wrong with it. Just own it, and I mean, it's a great recruiting tool. If you have the opportunity to give an NIL deal like that, blow it up. Maybe you can have another once-in-a-lifetime recruiting class. Maybe you have a twice-in-a-lifetime recruiting class. But like I said about Jimbo, you got to win with this crew. You have got to win with this crew. You have the number one recruiting class ever as far as rankings are concerned. There is really no excuse for Texas A&M not to compete for, and they really need to win a national championship. Everybody that's had these greatest classes of all time, most of them have ended up winning a national championship when it was all said and done. So he's got about 3 years to do that. And if he doesn't do it then, he's not competing for a national title, then he might be in trouble. Because there's really no excuse for them not to. They've got to be able to compete for a national championship. And they're going up against some really good coaches and some really great players in Alabama and Georgia on a yearly basis. And you look at the rest of the SEC, we went through the recruiting classes. In the top 25, you got like 12 teams out of the SEC in the top 25. So you're going up against great programs every single week in the SEC, great athletes. Nobody has, outside of Vanderbilt, nobody has a roster that is just not very good. Everybody's got a pretty darn good roster. Do you think Kelly Harper will leave Tennessee for Mississippi State? No, I don't. Fred, I saw that in the last 20 years, the team that finishes number one in recruiting has won a national championship. That's what I'm saying. I mean, they've got to. They don't have a choice. In the next 3 years, Jimbo needs to have a national title at Texas A&M. That's not going to be acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable by that administration. But then again, they gave him a raise for winning like 8 games. So, but anyway, any more questions? Steve feels like Leach doesn't get the NIL era. I don't think he does. I don't think he likes it very much. But State's going to have to jump on board with that. Everybody's doing it. You're going to get left behind if you don't. And there's been some NIL opportunities at Mississippi State, but nothing like some of these other schools have. I mean, State's got to get really involved. What's interesting, I think State could really. I saw somebody mention this on the board today. I had the same thought. State could very easily get some of these, like Mossy Oak. State could really take control of the hunting side of things. I mean, some of these baseball players are getting some good deals on this. Mossy Oak or Owens outfitter in Starkville as well. I mean, the State could really get some players in the South by going all in with that. And I had that same thought. That I forget who mentioned it on our board today, but I've had that same thought. If some of those corporations, some of those stores really got involved, State could. That's one area that State, I feel like, could have an edge on some of these other teams. But they just got to find a way. They got to find a way to get in this NIL game. And right now, just haven't seen a ton of it at Mississippi State. I think the baseball team is getting some good advantages, which is good. So, anyway, we're coming up on an hour. This has been a great chat, guys. I appreciate you guys stopping in. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. We really enjoy having these conversations. I love doing these live chats. A lot of times I'm just talking to the camera and recording something for you guys, but I'd much rather do this live chat and have a good conversation with State fans and whoever else wants to come in here just about whatever comes up. I really enjoy that. Love talking Mississippi State sports with you guys. So make sure you're subscribing to this channel. If you don't listen to our podcast, Thunder and Lightning, go ahead and subscribe to that as well. We'll have a show going up in the morning. Brian and I are about to record here in a little bit, and we'll talk some about signing day and some other things I'm sure will come up. So go subscribe to that. And don't forget to subscribe to Gene's page tonight. We have a 60% off deal. You need to go get on that. We have 4 hours, I think, 3.5, 4 hours left on that deal before it expires. 60% off an annual subscription. An annual subscription is usually, I think, over $100 for a year, over $10 a month. You get 60% off that deal. So go subscribe today. We have great coverage over there. Of course, the women's basketball coaching search will be coming up. Who knows if we're going to have a men's basketball coaching search to cover. You want to be ahead of the game there and go jump on that. And also recruiting never stops. Paul Jones, one of the best of the business. Steve Robertson also one of the best. We have two of the best recruiting guys. We have great team coverage. Come check us out today. So subscribe to this channel, like I said. Go check out some of the videos that I've got. I've got some of these Talking Dawgs sessions. We had several videos from Baseball Media Day also yesterday. Go check those out. Subscribe, share this, like it, comment, whatever. Go do that. Steve, you're absolutely right. Subscribe to the SDN as well. I've almost knocked these things out of my ear twice. I'm not a very graceful person, so I appreciate any concern that you have for me. Just pray for me. I have several problems, but I appreciate you guys. Hope you have a great rest of the week. We'll check back in with you at some point next week, maybe this week. Who knows? I kind of do this stuff on the fly, but I really appreciate you guys checking in. Appreciate you guys subscribing, and we will see you down the road.